You're watching United News on the We Ukraine channel, and I'm Lyudmila Dobrovolska. The Russians have launched massive attacks on the energy and port infrastructure of the Odesa region. Despite the work of air defense, there have been hits. Production facilities and equipment were damaged. There were large-scale fires that were quickly extinguished, and fortunately, there were no injuries. There are also no power outages in Odesa or the region. Meanwhile, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, a woman was killed in a missile and drone attack, and 8 more people were injured, including 2 children. In the Sinelnikove district, a cafe, a store, a private house, and cars caught fire. In total, 12 homes were damaged. It was loud in Pavlohrad as well. There, the occupiers struck an infrastructure facility. Prolonged air raid alerts in the city have long become commonplace. On November 2nd, the shelling lasted for 13 hours straight. At that time, residential high-rises, parking lots, and a private business were damaged. How are people recovering? Pavlohrad's Sofia Moskalenko will tell us more.
A sharp piece of shrapnel suddenly flew in through the air, passed right through the furniture in the room, and I stopped right here, exactly at this spot, without moving any further.
The impact was so strong that the metal fragment got stuck in the wall. Lyubov says that at the moment of the attack, she wasn't at home.
A neighbor called to say that the window had shattered. Well, at first they didn't notice. They thought it was only on the balcony. Everything is shaking inside, that's all. I couldn't sleep all night. I need a doctor.
And in the neighboring entrance, a huge piece of metal flew right into a couple's bed. Yevhen recalls that he had just gone outside to warm up the car when he heard the explosion. And
he immediately ran to the apartment to his wife. Dust rose up and smoke and everything, nothing else. The shattered glass turned out to be there, and a shard was lying right next to the pillow.
He saw his wife in tears. For the 3rd day in a row now, they can't recover from the shock. Thank God we survived, and that's the most important thing. We didn't go to school, they understood us. The child didn't sleep all night, it was a nightmare. The epicenter of the Russian Shahed strike hit right here at the car parking lot. The cars here were twisted by the blast wave, their windows blown out and roofs mangled. It was from here that the fragments flew into the windows of the building. At that time, on November 2nd, it was Antonina's colleague on shift who managed to hide behind a desk just in time. The explosion went off around 2 p.m., just a few meters from their guardhouse. Look.
The refrigerator, do you see what happened? It actually flew out over here, then it moved over to this spot, and finally it got stuck right there. Can you believe it?
The blast wave blew the gates inward, and the fragments pierced through the layer of metal. But the fire didn't start, and that saved most of the cars. I
was worried. I sent my husband here to check things out. I didn't sleep all night. It was terrifying. Those Shaheds were flying around and there was this tension. So I stayed up until morning thinking to myself, I have to go to my shift. It was scary to go.
As a result of this strike, an 8-year-old girl was injured. A fragment got stuck in her leg, the neighbors say. The child has already undergone surgery.
She was coming out of the entrance when she was immediately injured. Also,
another Russian drone hit a different parking lot. There, the flames destroyed more than 10 cars. A 55-year-old man was killed.
A client who was parking his car ran away from here to this parking lot. That's what they say. The cars were burning, but not too badly.
The air raid alert in the city lasted for more than 13 hours. And lately, such prolonged threats in Pavlohrad are not uncommon. The Russians attacked the city not only with strike UAVs, but also with missiles.
Every day, and at any time of day, every day. Usually with Shaheds. More often, I would say it's still at night. But during the day, too, it happens very often now. There's nowhere for me to go. I have a lot of animals and no car.
The city council urges residents to take shelter behind at least 2 walls. For their part, they try to respond quickly to requests regarding damaged property.
Most of all, of course, it's drone attacks. There are different types of drones coming from different directions, targeting different objects. There are businesses, and there are also people who, as you saw, were affected at the site. The increase is absolutely varied. Yes, indeed, there is an increase today.
They are also prepared for winter dangers, the city council reports. Critical infrastructure has been equipped with generators. They have a plan in case of prolonged outages on how to supply electricity and water to homes. From Dnipropetrovsk region, Sofia Moskalenko, Yevgeny Lopatnichenko. We are Ukraine, Marathon, United News. Ukrainian drones have halted the operation of several more Russian oil refineries. a petrochemical enterprise in Bashkortostan, the Ukstovo fuel and lubricants plant. This is the Nizhny Novgorod region. The industrial zone of the Lukoil oil depot is burning here. It is important for securing the Moscow region. It accounts for about a third of gasoline consumption in Russia. This company produces more than 50 types of automotive, aviation, and diesel. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military continues to restrain enemy pressure in the Pokrovsk direction. Since the beginning of the day, the Russians have attacked the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine more than 100 times, trying to take Pokrovsk and Mirnograd in their grip. The Kremlin has even managed to lie about its surroundings. Heavy fighting is also ongoing in the Oleksandrivka direction, near Sichneve, Stepov, Pavlivka and Uspenivka. At the border, the invaders are shelling with aviation. The main intelligence directorate has revealed details of the Pokrovsk special operation. You are now seeing unique footage of the combat work of the Timur special unit. Fierce battles with Russian occupiers are currently raging in the city. A ground corridor was broken through to our special forces, and additional forces joined them. Intelligence officers emphasize that in order to stop the occupiers' attempts to expand their fire control over logistics combat operations. And now more about what is happening in Pokrovsk right now, and what strategic, military and geopolitical significance this city holds for both us and the Russians. Our correspondents have contacted those who are currently in Pokrovsk, and we are preparing this report for the broadcast of United Main today at 8 p.m. Volodymyr Zelensky met with Azov fighters who are defending the Dobropilya direction. The president was briefed on the situation at the front line, the strengthening of the defensive flanks of Pokrovsk and Mern, and the protection of logistical routes. Among the important topics were issues of weapons, drone production, and the needs of the brigades. They also discussed the release of Ukrainian soldiers from Russian captivity. Zelensky thanked the fighters for their service and awarded them with state honors. A closed meeting of the Coalition of the Willing took place in Madrid. 2 rounds of negotiations were held behind closed doors. The participants, who were representatives from 35 countries around the world, were prohibited from using mobile phones and from sharing any information about the meeting on social media. The Coalition of the Willing was established in the spring by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The most recent meeting, which was also attended by the President of Ukraine, took place in London on October 24th. Meanwhile, the European Union has agreed on its annual enlargement report. The EU has given a positive assessment of the reforms being implemented in Ukraine, and as part of the financial support program for Ukraine's state budget, the EU Council has allocated us almost another 2 billion euros. How important this is for us, Olena Chernyakova is ready to tell you right now. She is at the Cabinet of Ministers, where the briefing by Deputy Prime Minister Taras Kachka and the EU Ambassador to Ukraine, Ms. Katarina Maternova, has just ended. Lena, over to you. Please go ahead.
Lena, hello? Yes, that's absolutely right. An hour earlier, in fact, the EU Ambassador to Ukraine handed over a report to the first Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration. This is, in fact, the assessment of a candidate country moving towards the EU. It's an evaluation of the government's work over the entire year. Simply put, as Taras Kachka said, it's actually not just one, but 36 assessments across 33 chapters that the EU is moving through. And Taras Kachka says that this report is better than last year's and even better than the previous 2 years. In principle, the ambassador agreed with this and said that there has been progress, but there are also additional recommendations, which I will talk about later. However, this is how the EU evaluates our progress. Towards the European Union, towards full membership. Let's listen to her comments.
First of all, I would not like to directly compare how exactly the reports and assessments are progressing in specific areas, but it is quite clear that the trend is steadily positive. Let me give 2 examples. Last year, 6 out of 36 chapters were noted for good progress. And good progress means truly significant work has been done. This year, there are already 12 such chapters.
Of course, the EU also recognizes our work during the war, because while other candidate countries such as Moldova and Serbia are moving forward without the conditions of war, without the threats we face daily, this is something the EU acknowledges as well, and it is reflected in the report. And in fact, with this report, the report supports the point we've heard many times, that Ukraine has completed its roadmap work in 3 clusters. These are the first, second, and 6th chapters. There are 6 in total now. Next year, they want and plan to complete all the other roadmaps in the remaining 3 chapters. However, as we understand now, the official opening of the clusters is being blocked by Budapest. So even now, the European Commission is considering a new mechanism for how to move forward. For example, regarding the BTP in expert groups, for instance. However, for this, the European Commission must receive the support of the European Council. These are complex legal procedures, but they are important, and this demonstrates that Brussels sees Ukraine as part of the European Union. The report also notes that Ukraine intends to complete all reforms by 2028. This was stated today by Taras Kachka. As for the recommendations I already mentioned, they do exist and concern the stability of the anti-corruption institutions. In response to this, Taras Kachka says that they hear the recommendations and are working on them. Even today, meetings of law enforcement agencies were held. Let's listen to his comment.
In fact, this is systematic work regarding the selection of personnel in law enforcement agencies. This is our task under chapters 23 and 24. It is not part of the anti-corruption section. We are, of course, moving forward with it. Today we held another meeting. We expect to launch the work of selection committees in the Office of the Prosecutor General and within the prosecution system in the first quarter. The same applies to other law enforcement agencies. There is nothing extraordinary here either.
So in fact, today we have grounds for cautious optimism. There are successes in implementing the reform, but there are also recommendations that still need to be worked on and which the Ukrainian government plans to address.
Olena, thank you. My colleague Olena Chernyakova, reporting from the government briefing about the latest news on our European integration. And very soon, the 2025 Winter Support Program will launch in Ukraine. All Ukrainians will be able to receive a one-time payment of 1,000 hryvnias, while certain categories of citizens will receive 6,500 hryvnias. You can apply for this payment from November 15th to December 15th through the DIA app, or by visiting a Ukrposhta branch in person. The money will be credited to the national cashback card, just like last year. Throughout the year, you can spend this government-issued 1,000 hryvnias on utilities, medicine, books, services, or donate it to the armed forces of Ukraine. In addition, the government has clarified how the Use 3,000 social program will work. For those who don't know yet, this is a government initiative that will launch in December, allowing every citizen the right to travel 3,000 kilometers for free. This applies to domestic long-distance routes, except for the premium segment. You will be able to use these 3,000 kilometers over the course of 4 months, exclusively during the low season and on non-priority routes. According to the CEO of Ukrzaliznytsia, there is an opportunity to offer up to 250,000 unfilled seats. You will be able to catch them in the app. They plan to initially focus on passengers from frontline areas. The government emphasizes that no additional funds from the state budget will be spent on this program.